Friends, family and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog, and as always I'm going to date stamp this. It's year 4 blog number 44, but in legacy numbers it's my 200th blog. I never thought I'd get that far with this, and it's dated the 21st of December 2025, which means it's just before Christmas. Do I feel Christmassy? No. I thought I might do, but you know, it's just one of those things. Just don't feel it. I didn't really feel it much last year, I don't think, although I haven't checked my old recordings, which are still available in my YouTube list. But no. It's I've done some Christmas shopping and all of that, but I'll talk about that later on. And bought a lot of the Christmas dinner stuff, and I still just don't feel Christmassy. But I'm looking outside and it's pretty dark, pretty dank. It's not raining, but it has been raining. It's just horribly damp, and I had a couple of days off last week from work, but I go back to work on Monday and have to work all the way, including Christmas Eve, and then I'm off, and that's when I'm hoping that I'm going to have a nice relaxing time. I don't know if that'll happen. It's a different type of Christmas this year for me, but I'm hopeful. So I'm just going to go straight into the news, if you don't mind, to be quite honest, rather than talk about myself and all of that sort of stuff. Just get it out of the way. And I start off with the war. And next week will probably, and I'm 90% certain, I'll drop the war for next year. So this will probably be the one from last. And what did I read this morning? It says peace talks between Russia and USA in Miami are considered proceeding constructively, said Putin's special envoy Kirill Dmitriev. Meanwhile, President Zelensky has asked for broader talks in regards with Europe officials on security guarantees. Putin has stated this week that European leaders are little pigs ahead of his Brussels summit. That's pretty much all that I've got with the articles that I've read. I believe Ukraine has hit some ships in retaliations this week. The rest is talks between America and Russia without Ukraine's involvement, and Ukraine trying to garner more impact in regards to security after the peace talks have gone, in regards to keeping Ukraine, which is understandable. But that's been a hot topic and a hot potato, I would say, for quite some time. So nothing really spectacular there. I don't like these talks between America and Russia without Ukraine being present. I take it they've got the best interests, at heart with this, and follow NATO rules and all of that sort of stuff in regards to attacks on a country, and taking land by force, and then what they should be doing is giving it back once this is over. But I just don't see that happening, and that's why really I just want to drop this. And everybody knows I just want the war to end, and I want it to be just, So what have we got for the UK? This was an article that was this morning. Thousands welcomed the winter solstice as the sun rose over Stonehenge. Yes, that happened, I believe, this morning. Look it up about winter and summer solstice. It should now be lighter from now. but it'll be, you won't see any differences, I don't think, really, till about February. But you gain so much time every day until we get to, spring and summer, and then we'll have summer solstice, and, the cycle just continues. Summer solstice, winter solstice, summer solstice. So we'll have the longest day to look forward to next year. But yeah, my granddad always used to tell me about solstice, so I've always been interested in that. Other news: trail hunting to be banned as part of the new animal welfare strategy. This was interesting. Never been pro fox hunting. When fox hunting was banned, they started trail hunting. Trail hunting is the using animal scent across huge fields and all that sort of stuff, and dogs and their masters on horses follow that scent without killing animals, because foxes, minks and all of those other animals are now protected, but they're now saying that it's a smoke screen, and that these people that do this kill wild animals during these trail huntings. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. All I know is it's a centuries old thing. Fox hunting and all that. Trail hunting could be considered a smoke screen, and I've never been for it. It's barbaric. I'm all for farmers protecting their land and getting rid of vermin, hares and all that sort of stuff that eat the vegetables and so forth in the ground, from the ground. So, I've lived on a farm, sort of like helped on a farm when in my childhood, when I went to visit my nan. And, it's one of those things where my dad had a cartridge gun. My uncle had a cartridge gun. They had gun licenses. I would sometimes go out. My uncle would go ferreting, and, use a farm dog to, go rabbiting and so forth. That was back in the 70s, early 80s. Haven't done much of that since. I've always mentioned that I wanted my dad to take me clay pigeon shooting or skeet shooting. He was always going to do it. My dad always said it's bloody costly. And it just never happened. It got to the point, and then my dad died. I mentioned it to my uncle. I don't think he, at his age, he wanted to do that sort of thing. He's more into his fishing and so forth. So, yeah, it's a missed opportunity. I'd still like to do it, but my eyesight is nowhere near like it used to be. So it'd probably be difficult now. But, never say never. It could happen. Other news: the King pulls the perfect pint on the 18th of December at a new brewery. That was all over the news. The King, the Queen, the princes, they've all been mentioned because of Christmas cards and what they're doing over Christmas and all of that sort of stuff. There was talks about with friends last night in our ho-ho-ho Christmas extravaganza about watching the King's speech. And I had to turn around and say, and ah on that. I did watch the first King's speech when he became king. I did watch the last Queen's speech when I knew that she was very frail and that, time was against her. Died months later. And I was in London with my friend Mainmeister, actually, a couple of days after she died. Interesting times, that. But there you go. That's that piece of news. I'm not a royalist, so it means nothing to me. And the other news was that London Victoria Station this week was evacuated after a fire alert. Now, it didn't say much more other than that, but I can imagine the mass panic that happens when a fire alert occurs. I hope everything was smooth, walking out, not running, no panicking, all of that sort of stuff. I'm pretty sure that would have been the case. So, that ends the news in the UK, really. There's probably a lot more stronger stories I could have brought in. I do remember seeing on the news this week something about how data is protected and that it's not very safe at the moment, and AI was all mentioned and stuff, but I couldn't quite remember what the full story was on that. A couple of other big news was that a director that I've got, I really, really loved in my youth was Rob Reiner. He died on the 14th. So that was, I think, last Sunday. So after this blog, it was announced, I think, on Monday. Rob Reiner and his wife were shot, I believe. The son is under investigation for it. So why is Rob Reiner so? He died at 78. Why is he important? Well, I loved films like The Princess Bride. Take that, for instance, or A Few Good Men, the courtroom drama with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, Debbie Moore. That's a great film. And I loved the horror film Misery. Always remember that hobbling scene, where she kept her favourite author. She was the number one fan, and kept him from going or moving or escaping by putting a block of wood between his ankles and getting a mallet and basically breaking his ankles. It's snapping the bone with a mallet. Horrible scene. It really well done. Rob Reiner did some great films. They mentioned things like When Harry Met Sally and all of those sort of stuff, and they're all great films. Should I say the ones I saw were absolutely brilliant. So it's very sad to hear that. I mean, I knew Carl Reiner probably more than Rob Reiner. Carl Reiner was his father, and also in the media business, big friends with Mel Brooks. They did a number of comedy skits during the 50s. And me being a Mel Brooks fan, I sort of knew Carl Reiner. But Carl Reiner was in lots of TV spots, did his own films. So, yeah, very, very sad. And then that was followed a couple of days later by Jill Gerard dying of cancer, I believe, at the age of 82. Now, he was in Buck Rogers in the 25th century. Just the title sequence alone has been parodied. South Park has parodied that. The Simpsons have parodied it. It's famous. The tune by Stu Phillips is brilliant. Sets the scene up. Obviously, watching it as a sort of a child, because it was before my teenage years, lots of very attractive women in skin tight outfits also helped. I remember it going against Doctor Who, which was a favourite show of mine, and we didn't have a video recorder until the very early 80s, so I think it was just around the end of season 2 of Buck Rogers that we got our video recorder. I think Buck Rogers was 1979 to 81 from memory. So yeah, it was one or the other, and it was difficult for me because there's no repeats, you know what I mean, at this time. You watched what was there. It's not like now, we're in luxury, I suppose, now, even though we moan about it, how many channels and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, such a shame. didn't shape my childhood, but a very enjoyable part. He was in episodes of Chips. He was in episodes of Little House on the Prairie. He was in the film Airport 77. Number of films, actually, in his early part of his career. Probably got typecast after Buck Rogers a little bit, but I do know that he was in a number of series after Buck Rogers that maybe lasted 1 or 2 seasons. I think he was a doctor as well in a famous program in the States. If it was Doctors, I probably didn't watch it. The only thing I watched Doctors-wise was St. Elsewhere or something like that. And I don't think he appeared in those. So, yeah, it's a great shame. And 2 deaths before Christmas, and yeah, I think that both of them got lots and lots of memorandum type comments from their co-stars and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I just find it very, very sad. And that sort of like ends the news, if you see what I mean. Then we get to work this week. Well, I only worked a couple of days. We all got a spreadsheet of things we need to do over Christmas. So it's the week before Christmas, so this was handed out. We were given links to spreadsheets, a template that we had to write what we did that day. And I call this micromanagement. I don't care who's looking at this or states anything. It's not needed. We work hard. I don't believe that we need it, but apparently it's to show we're working over Christmas. I didn't qualm about it, but Monday and Tuesday were very difficult days for me because of my mum, and I'll talk about that later on. So I did what I could on Monday, and on Tuesday I got a text message before I even started work saying, I noticed that you did 2 of the 3 tasks. Why didn't you get to the 3rd? For which I had to answer, well, you do know I'm a carer, and you do know that something was going on in the morning, which I told you in advance. And we had meetings at 11 o'clock, which took up an hour and 20 odd minutes. And that meant that really I could only start in earnest on this spreadsheet of yours in the afternoon. So I'm actually very, very happy what I got done on Monday. And he actually did reply, fair enough, you know. But I don't understand why I'm telling somebody that I've already told in advance what's going on, why something didn't get done. It's pretty obvious. So Tuesday came. So as you know, I answered that on Tuesday, and Tuesday came along, and it was another day for my mum, which I'll talk about later. But in this particular instance, I got a slightly more done. But the last task again, where I needed to do 25 in the day, I got 7 done. I don't know whether that's going to be commented on because I haven't gone back to work yet. That'll be tomorrow. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully my colleagues have done quite a bit of work on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're off this week, so I hope they are, because, you know, they are now having their days off and there is just me doing the work. So, you know, it's going to be a very difficult time because these people are off. There's very few people in, and I'm going to be running around like a headless chicken trying to do things like prepare the Christmas dinner, because I've got to defrost it and cook it the night before and all of that. There'll be guests and relatives arriving. There'll be stuff that I need to do at night in regards to Christmas wrapping, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, this should be a time where you sort of downscale. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people won't be in, and yet I'm going to be micromanaged for work. I find it annoying more than anything. I'm not worried about it, because if I don't get it done, I'll just turn around and say, well, what do you expect? You know, I did say that I wanted this time off. I booked it and you cancelled my booking and gave it to other people. And I've got a sick mother and things going on in relation to people wanting to come and see my mother. You know, I mean, we don't know if there is a time scale on whether on how long my mother will be around, but many people get to a point at Christmas and say, could this be the last Christmas? Could this be the last Valentine's Day? Could this be the last New Year? Etc., etc. And that's where more people will turn up than ever before. So yeah, I find it very, very distressing and stressful. So that was work. So we get to my mum. Yeah, on Monday we had the GP visit. It was a review. He was here for nearly an hour and a half. My sister was there. I was there. We answered his questions. My sister gave input. I gave input. And at the end, a couple of things were stated. One of them, he wants the water tablet reduced to 40 again. So we've gone from 40 to 80 to 40 to 80 and back to 40 again. And we mentioned what would be happening the next day, which is those steroid injections, which I told you was happening on the 16th. That's where my sister was going with my mum to Bicester, which is a good 15 miles away, and to have steroid injections in the knee to take away the pain and to aid with mobility. Now, on that particular day, I got the ramps and everything all ready to get the wheelchair. The ambulance turned up, took them there. Absolutely fantastic. And then my sister told me about all of the headaches. Now, she had to wait for an ambulance to come back. I was on standby, which I told work about. And I had to do the shopping and everything. So it was getting, they left about 11ish, came back about after 3. And what can I say? The injections never happened. Now, this is where I have to go back to Monday, because the GP, we told him about our concern, saying that we were told that we could get there and then the person that's going to do the injection can actually turn around and say, no, we're not doing it today, or something along certain lines. The GP told us you do not need to worry about this because we can get our doctor to come and do a home visit and do it. Well, why didn't they tell us this before? Because we actually asked that question, is there any way that somebody could turn up? And then we were told adamantly no. But this GP said, yes, you can. Now, on that same visit from the GP on Monday, a phone call came through to my sister, and it was the actual surgery that this doctor came from, and said that my mother was being taken off of the list for the injections before she's even had them. So he told us, don't worry about that. Just tell us how it goes on, and it's a different process, and we'll get a GP visit, but it won't be until the new year. So that relieved us a little bit. So that day on Tuesday, when my sister came back and told me the injections didn't get done, she went into great length on why. And apparently you can only have one visitor with your mother. Okay, and that was my sister. And she took the wheelchair. But they weren't prepared to move my mother from the wheelchair to a special chair to have the injections done, because she didn't have her Zimmer frame with her. How is my sister supposed to, on her own, have a wheelchair and also carry a Zimmer frame with her? Why don't hospitals, which is where she was in Bicester, not have these devices to do that? The person that was doing the injections was very nice, but my sister said she had a very thick accent because she was not English. Fair enough, but I think she understood in the end. But my sister was saying that she struggled with some of the things that my sister was saying. My sister is very articulate, really. She pronounces things slowly if needed. So I don't see the issue there. And she came back frustrated and annoyed, having somebody at 84 travel that distance and then travel back for no reason whatsoever because it didn't get done is atrocious. And I was angry for her. She had to leave our house late. My mother had no dinner because they don't have sandwich vending machines at this hospital. So she had to go next door and get a small, I think it was a small sort of like tray of chips. They do breakfasts and things at this place that's just next door to us, and they do takeaway. And she had to therefore get a late bus home and tell the rest of the family that nothing got done. And it's awful. Absolutely awful. I was disgusted by it all. My sister said she was going to phone the next day to find out or to get her on the new list for a GP visit, but she hasn't told me whether that got done or not. I hope it did. I'll have a word with her. But it's now Sunday and that was Wednesday and nothing's come through. And this is where I talk a little bit about communication. Maybe it slipped her mind. I don't know. I'm talking about it now because I'm looking at my notes. And, you know, things can slip your mind. Because after that particular day, the rest of what happens to my mum is just the normal stuff, you know. Trying to work together to look after my mum, communication breakdowns because obviously it's strained relations at the moment between my sister and I, but always working for the betterment of my mum, never ever in question. And, you know, it's all prep now for Christmas Day. And all I know about Christmas Day is my sister will be here for a couple of hours on the actual day itself. She did sort of like in conversation say that she was going to be here all day on Boxing Day. I told her she doesn't need to. I do recognise that my sister will want to spend some time with my mum because it's Christmas, so I've got no problem. She's bringing her own dinner for my mum on the Boxing Day. I'm not quite sure how this will work because I've bought the meat and all of the potatoes and trimmings and stuff for the Christmas meal, and my mum doesn't eat an awful lot, and therefore there's going to be lots of leftovers. But you expect that, don't you, with a Christmas meal? Leftovers. You'll be having hot pots for days and sandwiches. So that's just an expectation, really, isn't it, of everything? So yeah, that's pretty much what's happened with my mum this week. And then there's me. I've already talked about work. Wednesday was a day of trying to tidy up and do some stuff. Thursday was the day I went downtown. Now on Thursday I went into the building society because my house money is in what they call a duo account. There's a huge chunk that is not making money at the moment. It's breaking even at best, and has been for 10 years. And that's since my dad died. He would have seen this and said, come on, we're going downtown and we're going to get this sorted. But I don't know financial advisors and I'm not that really inclined. But it's not losing money, but it's breaking even. And every December I have a certain amount of interest money that money makes go into my other account, which is why it's called a duo account. And that's my Christmas money. Now, I did this, and I explained it to my dad at the time, and he agreed that Christmas was a terrible time for me. I was working for Lloyd's Bank, and what happened is I got paid on something like the 15th of December, but didn't get paid until the 25th of January, which was a huge span of time. And I always ran out of money, but still had bills to pay because I had my own house, the mortgage, the ISA, all of that sort of stuff going on. And only the birthday that I have in January kept me going. So I said, I'm sick of being in that situation. And so when we set this up, I set up money being transferred across, only interest, never the bulk of the money. And it was only a certain amount transferred to use as money to last me through January. Now, that meant it's a smaller amount now. I mean, I used to take out a huge amount because it was doing well, but now it's a small amount, and it pays for the Christmas food and the Christmas presents. So I got that out, and I asked to speak to a financial advisor in the building society, to say, is it possible I can speak to someone because my money's not doing very well? This woman came out and she said, we don't do that anymore. The company that you deal with for your huge chunk has now pulled away from our building society. They have nothing to do with us, so we can't help you. You need to speak to them. I think they do home visits, but you'll need to speak to them in regards to it. And I said, it's okay. I was just sort of inquiring, and I thanked them and wished them Merry Christmas after taking my money. And then I went to go and get my mother's presents. So I use that money. I don't use any other money, just that money. Don't get any card out or anything. And I went around to Boots and a few other places and got some presents out. I got a couple of surprise presents that I don't want to say during this blog because that would be a surprise for those people. But for my mother, that was the main thing. And I listen sometimes to the Martin Lewis show, and he tells you about the big discounts that go on at Boots and all that sort of stuff, what to look out for. And I bought some stuff for my mum. Now, she's not going out and she doesn't put makeup on and all that sort of stuff, but there's plenty of stuff that you can get. So that was easy. And then I thought I will go round and have a little look. Now, our precinct is not in the best of health. There are drips coming in from the roof and making the tiled floor wet. Now, I was heading, I was doing the loop of our precinct, and I was heading towards HMV, which is on a slope, and there was no warning signs, and I couldn't see anything on the floor that looked remotely wet. But I slipped and I hurt my leg, and it was my leg with arthritis. Landed badly. It was in immense pain. And this lady that I was near when I was passing by her had a walking stick, and I was concerned for her more than anything to get around this puddle that was on the floor. It was just wet. No warning signs or anything. And she said she was okay, and I walked around. And I went into HMV, and after about 5 minutes, the pain started to grow. And I asked the person behind the counter, I told him what had happened, and he said you could sit down. And I sat down for about 10 minutes, and it started to throb. So I was rubbing my knee. I wanted to go round and look at the films that might have been on sale, but I aborted that and headed back to the car, which is a long walk. So I think it was a little bit about like boxers tell you, when you break your hand in the ring, it could be the end of the fight, but after a while it numbs. And it started to get numb out when I was walking. And I went into Greg's, and I thought it'd be really nice if I bought my sister and my mother a cake. So I bought a pack of biscuits with a couple of chocolate eclairs, and I know that my sister's trying to get off of chocolate, so I bought her a sort of like a large jammy Dodger type biscuit, and got back into the car, and it wouldn't start. The bloody battery was flat. Now, I charged this battery, but of course it dawned on me, didn't it? Ever since I've had the car charged, I've only done little trips, and it was the third time of using the car since I got my license back, and I charged it around about a month before I got my license, and that's because I was told any moment now you're going to get your license. You remember all of that kerfuffle that went on. So of course I had to phone the AA because I'm a member of theirs, and he turned up about an hour and 20 minutes after I called, and 15 minutes before the time ran out on my money I'd paid for the parking. And he said that yes, the battery was dead. From a health test, he recommended I buy a new battery, and told me that the AA might come out if I phoned them again, but I'd have to prove that I bought a new battery, because the health check was borderline and mostly on fail, and that's expected because the car is 10 years old and it's got the same battery in it. I told him the reason why, and he said yeah, but we got it started, and I brought it back home, and my sister had an appointment that day. She hadn't told me what time the appointment was, but I got back about 40 minutes before she needed to go. And when she tried to book a taxi, it was difficult for her. And I totally understand that. But if she'd have told me what sort of time her appointment was, I might have sent a text message to say I was going to be late. But I was back at 2 and she goes at 4, and that's 2 hours early. And I didn't see the reason for sending a text message other than I knew she had an appointment, and I thought it'd be a half an hour early, not an hour. So it's that miscommunication. You see, things could have been so much better. But as soon as I got back, I put the car on charge. The next day, Friday, I put the car on charge again. So it's had now a good 8 hours, 9 hours charge in 2 days. And I'm going to be putting it on full charge when I'm at work tomorrow. As soon as I get Mum done, I'll quickly put the car on charge. That'll be 9:30 in the morning. I'm not going anywhere, and it'll be on until about 6 or so at night, and that's because it's dark then, and I need to take the leads off. That means it would have had a good 12, 13, 14 hours charge. Well, more than that, 16, 17 hours charge since the incident happened. So that hopefully will be good. And I need to get a good long trip done. I need to go up the motorway, probably all the way to Birmingham and back, for the alternator to really put a good charge into it. I recognise that, even if the AA bloke did remind me. So yeah, you need to sort of like over rev it, really. Be in a lower gear, like instead of being in 5th or 6th, be in 4th, and do a good jaunt with that. And the motorway would be the best place to do that. And actually Christmas Day would be ideal, because then I think most of the people be off the motorway that have already travelled to their relatives. I know that after Boxing Day and before Christmas Day, everybody's on the motorway. It'll be an absolute car, it'll be a car park. So on the motorways. So yeah, I need to sort of like do that, and I might do that on Boxing Day. Might be ideal, actually, doing that. I don't think Boxing Day sales are much of a thing anymore. So anyway, that was Thursday. Friday was nothing because of the charging. Saturday was picking up the Christmas food. Now, I'd booked this. The only slots available to pick up food was Saturday. Sunday fully booked, every slot. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, fully booked. And that's for collect. And fully booked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for delivery. And yet you couldn't order the Christmas meat until the 20th. And that's because of keeping it fresh. So the 20th was Saturday, wasn't it? So I managed to get it booked. And picked it up around about 1 o'clock, between 1 and 2. We had a visitor Saturday morning. A lovely gentleman who used to be our neighbour from across the road, and he may have mentioned to you in a previous blog that his mother died about 3 weeks ago, and a great friend of my mum's and somebody that had been in my family for years and years and years, and the funeral is not until 2nd of January. So that's a horrible thing to start the new year with, but we're going. And he turned up to see my mum and wish her a Merry Christmas and see how she is. And we were having a chat, and we were talking about how he took care of my mum, and we asked about his mum, you know, and what she was like in the final weeks, and what the problem was, and all of that sort of stuff. And she died fairly quickly. She was in hospital for a couple of weeks. She did fall and was in hospital because of that. And we started talking about her husband, you know, my friend's dad, and he died very early 2000s, and I remember him fondly as well. Always made my sister laugh. Always, I found him a very funny man, very caring, nice, softly spoken, just a great bloke. When we moved away from our home, we didn't lose touch with these people. They were not that far away. It's around about a mile, less than that. So you could easily get there. So yeah, I do remember visits to go and see them. I remember my childhood very well. So yeah, that was nice on Saturday morning. I pinched my getting the Christmas meat. It was brought out on a lift truck type thing, and it had a bracket, and I tried to pull the bracket up and it came away, but when I lifted the case away, it dropped down on my finger. I got a small welt there, look. So that bloody hurt. And then I picked up all the trimmings, you know, mint sauce, cranberry sauce, went round, got the essentials, and paid for it mostly with nectar points, because I need to save money. So it's, you know, I had quite a bit saved up because of 2 years of going to Sainsbury's and never spending a penny on nectar. So the Christmas meal has actually been bought with, mostly with that, although some of it was with money. About £40 of it was, and all of the food up together, including this week, was 130. So I spent 40 of my own money and the rest on nectar points, and it left us, I think it's left with about £5 in nectar points, next to nothing. And that happened actually, funnily enough, because I forgot my wallet. Funnily enough, I paid for the collection with, and I forgot to pick up the wallet to do the trimmings, if you see what I mean. So it was ridiculous, really. So I had to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have used that. I'd have used the money that I've got from the building society that I mentioned earlier. And Saturday night was the Christmas ho 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 extravaganza. Still got the Christmas out here, look. And that was, by the way, bought a couple of days ago. I didn't even have it for the Christmas party, which was done by Teams Talk. So there you go. And that was brilliant. That was a nice 3 hours, jolly crowd, people asking and talking about Christmas past, present. We didn't really talk about Christmas future. It did go to 12 o'clock, and so I needed to go to bed. So yeah, it's been an interesting time, and my only concern now is this week leading up to Christmas, and hoping just for a relaxing time after it. I just want to get this horrible build up out the way, because I just don't feel Christmassy. Just do not feel Christmassy. With all of that, would you feel Christmassy? I don't know. Listening to a piece of music, rocking around the Christmas tree, you know, White Christmas and all of that, played in instrumental in shops, not done it for me. And yeah, I still need to buy Christmas wrapping paper, probably some sellotape and some gift tags. There's some Christmas cards for the neighbours to write out as well. So yeah, there's plenty going on, and that's that for that. I was hoping that was going to be quick, but I'm going to do the shout outs now. And then after the shout outs, I'm going to read out the comments, but I'm going to take a little break because throat's hurting and I just want to take a break for 5 minutes. I've been talking. So the shout outs is always one of the favourite bits of mine, along with the comments, because these people have obviously took their time out to write something, goodwill wishes, a question, whatever. And I like to read them out. But I'm very, very happy for anybody that watches this blog, to be quite honest. Yeah, you could look at it as a nosy thing, but I'm quite happy to partake in what's going on. It's a diary. It's my video diary. It's instead of me writing things down in a diary, if you see what I mean. So I find it very therapeutic, very good for my mental health. I wouldn't say I was that introvert, but I have very few friends, and that definitely hardly any that come to see me. But I've got lots of friends on the internet that wouldn't bat an eyelid if they lived in the same town as me to come and see me. It's just they're not in this town. So there you go. What can I say? So these are the people I want to wish a great salute and thank you. And they are in no particular order: Frank Holder, LFC Gamer and Vlogs, Ian Hill the Ramblings, Sandra Clark, Wee Bob Art, Steve's Gaming Part 2, Gans Teeth, Muckman-Movies, Martroid, and Colin Jones, aka Ponder. Like I say, no particular order. Every single one a joy to speak to. And we're going to get to the comments. But I am, like I say, just going to take a break. And it'll be just a couple of minutes. I want to splash my face, refresh up, and then get this blog finished. So back in a moment. And we're back, and I've got myself a bit of water and a spare, just in case. So I should be good to go. So these are not in any particular order. We're going to read out and answer the questions as they come. So the first one is from my mate Denny, who was with me on the extravaganza last night. He's put, "Hiya mate, just a quick one to say many congratulations on your 200th vlog." Yeah, 200th, my God, man. "Thank you, Ian, and everyone that joined in the humbug extravaganza last night. Really enjoyed that after a year away from streaming." Yeah, we both realised during that stream. I haven't opened StreamYard since last Christmas Eve, so it's been a year, and we haven't done anything together in that year because, well, mostly it's because of me, I think. Really, it's to do with my mother, because if you remember from March, she collapsed, and then of course Denny has had his own issues with his work, you know, the timetable that he has to work, and of course he's been very, very unwell, along with his family for the last 2 months with this horrible flu strain. So he reminded everybody to keep well, get lots of vitamin D in you, all of that sort of stuff. Words of wisdom, to be quite honest. We give my mum lots of iron tablets and so forth, as part of her regime, along with the water tablets and the painkillers and the water, you know, the water tablet and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely words of wisdom there. "My best to you and your mother over the Yuletide period, and a peaceful New Year. Bless you for being such a wonderful friend." Oh, that's such nice things to say. And he's got a question. He says, "For this week, depending on time, do you have any new series of videos planned for 2026? And it's something that I've just started to think of. It's been very difficult the last, I would say, 6-7 weeks for me to do anything. That's got to stop. I need to have a life. I'm hoping things improve family-wise for me to do that. I definitely need to have a home life, and I'll be discussing that in the new year. It's not the right time to do it now. It's not going to be a hard thing. It's just going to be a, how can we do this so that we both have a life? Because I also, being, a family member, a brother, to, I'm a godfather, I'm an uncle, I need to address these things and make sure that there is some remnants of home life. And I don't mean on a Saturday you get this one day. I'm talking about time after work to say, have a bit of time, it's always difficult anyway to record after work because it's night and the light is not fantastic in here. I'd need to change the light strips up there. I've got a small sort of like little circular lamp here which is next to useless, and the light glare from the screens is not brilliant, even though I've got dark mode on. Always brightens up. So yeah, I've got a few things that I need to sort, and then I need to continue my film shorts, my gaming shorts, do more in regards to statues, my comics, all of that sort of stuff that makes me tick. And yeah, that's definitely in the cards. Have I got something in mind? No, not yet. I think between Christmas and New Year is when I'll be thinking about that. So not a fantastic answer, but definitely, more than just this blog. So that's going to be happening. And more live stuff if I can, even if it's just playing something late at night after I've got my mum to bed, just play some retro games and stream it. That's on the cards. Am I going to Twitch? No. Just don't have any inkling to do that. I've seen all the problems of trying to broadcast to YouTube and Twitch at the same time. I don't like that idea either. It would be one or the other. But, I do know that Twitch is a great platform. It's just not for me. Maybe I'll think differently in the new year. Don't know. But thank you, Denny and Salute, and thanks very much for being a fantastic friend. And I hope you have a great Christmas, as I wish everybody a great Christmas, but most importantly, because you are such a great friend to me. So thank you very much. Just going to take a bit of water before I read out the next one, because it's another War and Peace. Bloody hell. And this one's come from my friend Rocket Buddy. Let's see what he's put. He's put, "Hi Del, hope you and your mum had a good week. Sounds like you've had a busy weekend with all your streams." Yeah, it has. It's been very busy. "I hear what you say about work Christmas parties. In the early days, I have some great memories of fun work parties. The best was when they hired Leeds Castle for the night and laid on free transport for everybody to get there and back. With an open bar, it was indeed a night to remember, or not, as the case may be. However, as the years went by and my office moved further away and I had to drive, watching everyone else get drunk just wasn't as fun." No, it wasn't. And I have to admit that when I moved to the probation service, at the very early days, there were Christmas parties and they had them actually at the office, and that was quite good. But when the new CRC group came in, they gave us sort of a budget where you could involve yourself with other teams that were in the same building if you were alone by yourself. And I went to one of those and it just didn't feel the same. And I noticed, therefore, that I wasted the voucher that they gave me because I didn't go. I was allowed, I think, 25 quid. And it wasn't like a big party. It was, can I join your secretarial group or something? And it just didn't seem right. So, yeah, not great when it comes to that. Lloyd's was different, kettle of fish, different time. And of course, after COVID, it's all been teams, hasn't it? We all, most of my colleagues are in Manchester and Liverpool and Scotland and London. So we're never in the same place. So, yeah, not great again. So you continue. I confess, similar to you in Guild Wars 1, in that I just loaded it up and just ran around Lion's Arch for a bit. Earlier this year, a couple of friends and I had a few months back in Guild Wars 2. Fun while it lasted, but the usual MMO trope of grinding, lots of mobs to progress, story quests soon kicked in, and I got bored very quickly. Guild Wars 2 was never boring for me in the first 2 years. 2 years. Then it turned into a bit of a grind. So I can imagine what it's like now, and I much prefer the excitement of hearing of a Guild Wars 3. They've done incredibly well, and I really liked the documentary of 25 years of ArenaNet. That was great, and I agreed with most of the stuff in there. After finishing my solo Planet Crafter playthrough of the first expansion planet, still waiting for you to say the word for our game, I have to talk about that, because I did actually turn up on the Sunday, and you weren't there. And because we'd gone every Sunday, I took it that Sunday was the time that you knew I was coming. But I did read your note, and it said, give me a bell, give me a note when you want to. And yeah, I didn't do that, so it's all my own fault. I've now been giving Bellwright a go. It's a medieval survival village army building game. It has some unique world mechanics where you have to earn trust, free then protect other villages from the ruling king and his armies. An impressive, ambitious scope for an early access indie game. That sounds intriguing. I like survival games. A lot of people don't like this crafting and stuff. I absolutely love it. I understand that. I do find the time is the problem at the moment, matey. But I am again gonna, if you are watching this on today, aiming to come on tonight. Anyways, you continue. Quick question today. Have you watched season 2 of the Fallout series? And did you watch the first? I'm a huge fan of the games and admit to watching all the first series again last week on 4K Blu-ray this time, and thoroughly enjoyed the first episode of the new season this week. Now, I haven't watched season 2. I did watch season 1. I bought the steelbook. It came in 2 flavours, and I bought both. And I haven't watched more than 1 episode on the steelbooks. But I did watch the first series, and I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was all right. Not bad at all. Much better than that Borderlands film. Jesus, what a disaster that was. That was pretty atrocious. Am I a big fan of the games? I loved the first ones. Got all the way up to Las Vegas, I think. Fallout Las Vegas. Didn't play Fallout 76. I heard bad things about that. You might have to tell me whether it's as bad as what people were saying. I must admit, it's one that I've sort of like shied away from. But again, a time-hogging game. You continue. I have my mother's birthday this Sunday, which we'll enjoy as a family. That makes me think you might not be around Sunday, so I'll understand if that happens. It's been such a hard year for her, being in hospital 3 times for almost 3 months total. She's in a much more frail condition now, but we hope to give her a good day. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to doing that for my mum. Take care, and all the best wishes to you and your mum for Christmas week. And to you, matey, thank you so much, and thanks for being at the extravaganza yesterday. It was so much fun, and it was nice seeing your comments. That was brilliant. So, salute, and we move on. And you can hear my voice is getting croaky. It's probably because of all the talking yesterday. And we get to a much longer comment again now. It's from my good friend LFC Gamer and Vlogs, which he's got his own channel. And I urge you to go there. He does some fantastic vlogs. I haven't seen one for a couple of weeks, but when they're there, they're brilliant. I'll go and check and see if I've missed one this week, because it's getting close to Christmas and he might have done one. But he's put, "Hi Del, another great but quite lengthy blog." Yeah, hope it wasn't it, last week? Hope you're doing well this week. The same applies with your mum and your sister. The silly bugger that I am thought I posted a comment only to realise that I hadn't pressed the button to send. At least I've redeemed myself. Last week, not this week, on the Monday morning, my dad collapsed at work. Oh my God, due to a sudden drop in blood sugar levels, and had to be rushed to A&E, injuring his left knee in the process. Since he's a type 2 diabetic, he was monitored. Thankfully, he didn't need to spend the night in hospital, as he was discharged later that very day, as the triage was happy his blood levels had returned to normal. He's doing much better now, despite his knee still giving him some discomfort. I hope that goes away, matey. I can understand that. My knee's causing me right jip since I slipped over in the precinct. But yeah, those issues, wow. Don't need that before Christmas, do you? Before I post any questions, I just want to know your thoughts on people becoming increasingly dumber. And in my view, it's getting worse. People who generally have a disability like dyslexia or another condition can't help being that way. And I can totally understand why spelling certain words and using the correct grammar may provide a challenge for some. But where my frustration lies is with folks who are deliberately thick, mostly trolls on the internet, purposely spelling words wrong and grammar that's worse than eating tripe. Seeing the word cause instead of because drives me batty, as they are two words that are said differently, and that means and their meaning aren't even related. How hard is it to put the B at the start of because? Similar with loose instead of lose, a common mix-up I keep seeing on social media. One comment I saw, some troll was saying something along the lines of Liverpool will lose 9-0 to Newcastle. I love it when real shite are losing. By the way, it's losing, not losing. I can't really show you this, but it's 1L, 1O compared to 2 O's. Could, would, should, of, when it's actually could, would, should, have. I'd be here all week. What's my feelings on this? Trolls, just don't like them. Spelling, I'm not a fantastic speller myself. However, my keyboard on I do some things sometimes on the phone, and the phone types in different words because of that prediction. I ought to turn it off. And sometimes I miss a letter and another letter goes in its place, or whatever. And time is a restriction as well, like doing it in a 5-minute break, say. So I understand that. But trolls, got nothing to say about them. Nothing to say. It incites them. So I'll avoid that particular aspect. But being thick, spelling, all of that sort of stuff, yeah, I'm a bit like you, but I do know that I do it myself, so I probably won't go down that rabbit hole much in relation to things. But trolls, they can go do one. No time for them whatsoever. I'm nearly done venting, but what got on my nerves even more is when you give them helpful advice on their grammar, and because they know that they're in the wrong, they give you lip about it and spout nonsense like you knew what I meant, or don't tell me what to do, along with a few expletives and threats. That behaviour of people not wanting to learn right from wrong, thankfully they can blag their way through by being arrogant, needs to be called out more often in society. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but seeing these attitudes not being held to account doesn't sit well with me. No, and I could understand it, matey. I must admit, when you try to force the issue by pointing out the problems, I can see it from their point of view as being a bit of a finger point. But we should be open-minded to, oh yeah, I did do that wrong, didn't I? I always do that at work. I try to do it at home. It is a difficult one, but again, most of these that you're talking about seem to be the trolls, and they're not very open-minded, are they? So you say, moving on, here are the questions for the blog. What attractive features on a woman make you weak at the knees? And I don't mean the obvious. It could have something like red hair, green eyes, or nails are your kryptonite, as an example. My weakness has always been freckles on a pretty woman's face. And I have to say, I go for brunettes more than anything. I do love eyes. Eyes make me weak at the knees. Yeah, I do love expressive eyes, bold eyes, eyes that you can see from across the room. Do you know what I mean? The type of thing. And, you know, highlighted by their eyelashes and eyebrows, all of that sort of stuff. Aren't women beautiful, though? We're very lucky as fellas, I think. And they've got their own issues. And I just love the fact that they always look after themselves. You know, whether it be doing something with their hair, makeup, whatever. We've all seen the films, haven't we, where there's a couple getting ready for something. The woman always takes longer than the man. The man is always sitting around going, how long are you going to be? Bloody hell, you know, all that sort of stuff. But in hindsight, they're doing it for us. And that's great, you know. Number 2 of your questions. What terrible film do you think has some of the most unintentional, funniest line deliveries going? That's an easy one for me. Jaws the Revenge. Yeah, that's an awful film, yeah. Jaws the Revenge. I was never that enamoured by it. That line from Michael Caine never stops making me laugh, where he goes, bloody hell, the breath on that thing. Yeah, I can't remember that one. That's an interesting question. Do any come to mind? It's got to be a bad film, and that's difficult. There's a good film called As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt. There's a line in there that says, how does it go? Yeah, she's. I think it was her, Helen Hunt, that said, "You know, you're why caveman chiseled on walls." I always found that funny. Bad films. Batman and Robin's got some classics. I think there's one. Let's go kick some ice. When they were going over over Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Frost. That's an atrocious line. There's a really old film. Yeah. I think it's called... what's it called? King of the Zombies? So like a 1950s or 40s zombie film. And there's a guy in it. And he says, if there is one thing if there is one thing that I wouldn't want to be twice, zombies is both of them. You can see the conundrum there. One thing that I wouldn't want to be twice, because you have to get that in your head, that bit. That's an interesting one. I think that one will do. I'll go with that one. And that wasn't a particularly great film, being in a very early zombie film. Number 3, you say, back in the 90s, when you had a SNES, what were your most played games for the system? Wow. Now, anybody that knows me knows my tale on the SNES and how it got lost, or stolen, whichever way you want to look at it. And I had that Magidrive type thing. It was a thing that slotted into the cartridge port, had a disk drive, floppy 3.5 inch drive that came out of it, and a proper cartridge that you put in the top, and you could play games from disk. And if you took that cartridge out and you put a different cartridge in, you could back up that cartridge. So I used to go down and rent them, and I would copy that and then take it back. And I had hundreds of SNES games. But I was most enamoured by the ones that were in reviews that talked about how superb, how brilliant they were, how long they would take for you to finish. I did play a lot of Mario games. I did play a lot of Zelda games. I did play a few Metroid games. I suppose I geared towards the Mode 7 type games. I remember Axlay. That was a great shoot 'em up. But I bought games like Ghosts and Goblins, or should I say Super Ghosts and Goblins, or was it Super Ghouls and Ghosts? Can't quite remember. I've still got that, even though I haven't got a SNES, because I'm a big collector of the Ghosts and Goblins series. And I played, quite a lot of different games. Zombies ate my hamps. Zombies ate my neighbours. A lot. Mario, I suppose, and the Lost Worlds and all of that sort of stuff. All Stars. I played those a ton. And some people will be rolling their eyes going, Mario, Mario. But you bought a Nintendo for some reasons. And some of those reasons could be that you've loved the Mario games. I never had an NES. So I never really played Mario 1, 2 and 3. The second one being a sort of like a rebadge of a totally different game. And the third one being so revered. It's unbelievable. People cite that as still being the best Mario game ever. That's a hard one to contend with so many Mario games afterwards, and looking at things with rose-tinted glasses. So I hope that answers a bit of your question. And then number 4, what is your favourite Alfred Hitchcock film that isn't North by Northwest? Yeah, you have to understand, everybody knows that that's my favourite. I liked Jimmy Stewart, so Vertigo would be one. I did like Rear Window, but if I was push comes to shove, I think I'd choose Vertigo. I always loved the Bernard Herrmann scores that were in all the ones that were just been mentioned. North by Northwest, Vertigo, Rear Window. I loved things like The Birds as well, and Psycho in particular. Probably the last good Bernard Herrmann score under the Hitchcock regime is Psycho. So there's a number there, but I'm going to go with Vertigo. All right? I hope that answers that. And that seems to be the end of your little block. Thanks very much, matey. That's absolutely brilliant of you. And I hope you have a great Christmas and salute. And please, people, go and have a little look at his channel. Absolutely fantastic. Another bit of water, because that was War and Peace again. And I've got another bottle, so I'm fine. And we get to Frank Holder. Frank's been around for a while on my channel, so it's always nice to see something. And he's put, "Hi, Dowboy. I'd like to say I hope you and your mother have a enjoyable Christmas period. 3 hours, though, man. I used to watch your blog in one time, and now I'm having to watch it over 2 to 3 days. What happened to making it shorter? Mum. Basically, this year has changed because of Mum. So much to say about my mum. There's no other reason. In the middle of last year, it would have been taking breaks because of health. A little bit better now. I hope you notice that I don't take a break as often. I still need to take the occasional one, and sometimes it's to check on my mum. It depends on how long I've been doing this. You don't know what times I'm recording, so it can be a bit tricky. But that's the answer to that, and thank you very much, Frank, for that. I hope to bring them down a little bit, and I hope you have a great Christmas. And then we get to my friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings, who I do a live stream in on Wednesday. Very therapeutic. Don't know where my life would be without him, to be quite honest. He's sort of like been my saviour, my sort of angel on my shoulder type thing. And he was with me last night doing the Ho 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 extravaganza. live, which you can go and see as a rerun if you want. And you know, he's got a great channel, does so much stuff. You'll hear about his stuff later on. So what's he got to say? He's put, "Hi Del Boy, hope you and your mum are doing okay. I just hope you can get through all the stuff with your family. I think she should put everything aside for the sake of your mum. Would not like the situation if she knew." Yeah, totally get that. But my sister and I, it's a bit strained at the moment because of a couple of weeks, but it's defrosting, and you have to understand with these things that you can look at them from certain different angles, and you know, as much as I can turn around and say you're to blame for this and you're to blame for that, I try not to do finger pointing all the time. So, you know, I'm thinking things are going to be fine, matey, and thank you very much for your concern. My brother rang me out the blue. I just spoke to him in January. When I was younger, I was closer to him. However, that changed over the years. He's caring more for his wife, who is 84. I never got on with her. She didn't like me or my wife. However, I can put it all behind me, and I would for him. There still is a spark between us, and I have very little family left, so I appreciate him ringing. I know if Mum and Dad would have wanted that. I think it's a lesson for me to make sure I keep in contact. Yeah, and it's the same sort of thing. If my mum was in the right mind and knew that these things were going on, she wouldn't be happy. She'd want us to get on. Sometimes you lose that focus, but it is, like I say, a very difficult situation and very stressful, and like anything, like a pressure cooker, some things can explode, and when that happens, sometimes it can be good and it clears the air, other times it can really cause issues, and that's all I can say on the matter, and I hope that things change. I'm looking forward to Saturday when you and Denny kindly invited me onto the Bar Humbug live. Then on Sunday, Jamie Muckman-Movies invited me on a Christmas live. Maybe it will get me into a more festive mood. Not had a good year. To compound it all, the saga of the attempted bank scam goes on. I'm waiting for a new card, and then I can get back to my account. The card has just been sent and looks like I won't get it until after Christmas. Fortunately, my son has been helpful to me, so I'm arranging to get together everything for the Christmas dinner. Next Christmas, things will be very different, and we'll make up for this one. Yeah, that's what you got to think to yourself. And that scam, I wondered whether it was a scam last week. I found out that it was on Wednesday with you. I hope the words of advice gave you a bit of hope, and I'm glad that things are on the mend. But what a bad thing to not have your card to actually buy things with, having to go into the bank now to, you know, get a teller check to get your money out, and with your legs, that's a very difficult thing to do. You rely, don't you, on your card and buying things on Amazon and all that sort of stuff. Can't do it with cash. So yeah, different conversation is cash versus card, but we may do that one day. You sent me free film downloads, which two of them, The Dish, in the early 2000s, and The Year of Chuck, 2024, I have bought physical copies of. They haven't arrived yet. Things take longer this time of the a year. The Holdovers, 2023, recommended to me by Jamie as a Christmas film, I watched for the live stream on Sunday. That's brilliant. It's a great film. Saw that. I think it was Wee Bob Art, actually, that recommended it to me. I bought it in the summer of this year on Blu-ray, I think. I have to check that. Could be 4K. But it wasn't a steelbook. I know that much. A film I loved watching was Two Mules for Sister Sarah, 1970 film starring Clint Eastwood and Shirley MacLaine. There was a great chemistry between them, also comedy in it too, a real feel-good movie with a developing romance. And that was on ITV4 earlier this year, along with Pale Rider and a number of other films. I've got it in my collection. Shirley MacLaine, fantastic. I watched The Apartment a couple of weeks ago when my new copy arrived, and it is a Christmas film, so I might watch it again. It is one of those deeply loving films that I love. You know, seeing Jack Lemmon is always a joy anyway, but Shirley MacLaine knocked it out the park when she tried to commit suicide in the film. Absolutely fantastic. So my question this week is, when you were a child, was there a toy you really wanted but never got? Ooh, now I dare say there is. Yes, there is. But I'm going to say this just before I do. I was a very lucky boy, and I think my sister was a very lucky girl, to have parents like we did, because we wanted for nothing. There may have been the odd thing that we'd have written down and it weren't there, but I'll tell you what, 3/4 of it would have been. And they would have been the expensive ones on the list as well. It would have been the lower stuff that we didn't. As a kid, I always wanted 2 or 3 things that I never really got. Meccano was one. That was, my dad said, very expensive, the Meccano kit in the 70s. Not like, you know, it was expensive in the 50s, don't get me wrong. But in the 70s, it was just something my dad just couldn't ever get done. And he knew that you'd be buying bits for it, like downloadable content is now for the main kit. So that was one. Not sure. There's Meccano. I wanted the big track trailer to go with my big track, but that's a niggly point, isn't it, really, in the fact that you got the most expensive part, which is the main bulk of the unit, big track, and the batteries. So the trailer would have just drained the batteries probably even more, or, you know, it would have been very costly for my dad. So Meccano, the big track trailer. I'm trying to think. Oh. You see, from the moment that I left school, 86, bought my own stuff. So I'm having to go back some years. Always wanted a train set and always wanted a scale extric. Both, I don't think, was a problem for my dad in regards to money buying them, but yes, a problem for space. Nowhere to lay it down. Don't want to leave it up so that you can play it another time, because it would have been done in the living room, you know, the second living room that we've got here in this house. So, yeah, there's 2, a railway and a scale extric of a sort, especially one that uses night lights, and I like that. So I hope that answers your question. All the best, you say, wishes to you, and have a reet grand time. You have a reet grand time, my friend. Thank you very much. I'll be talking about what you've given to us this week with your own channel. And moving on, we get to Wee Baba. He's only put one line. I take it he never came back. It says, hopefully get to watch the rest of this over the next day or so. Wishing you and your family all the best. And that's all that matters, matey. That's all you needed to say. Thank you so much. It really, really is appreciated. And salute. And I hope everybody goes over and has a little look at his channel. It is fantastic. And now we get to Sandra Clark. Now, Sandra Clark joined us last night in the Ho 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 extravaganza. So we've answered her question, but I will read it out because I said I do. And it's got, "Hello, Del. I'm quite upset with Ian Hill right now. You know, I've been blocked from commenting on his Wednesday streams, but last night I asked my friend Paul to put a message there from me saying I miss talking to you all and hope you all have a lovely Christmas. But Paul's comments were also blocked by Ian. Paul told me he put it in several times, but it never appeared. So he's now also not allowed to comment. I just wanted to say I'm quite upset about this, but I now will give up and not attempt to chat there ever again. But I like to do that, so it's a shame. I don't know what I did wrong, but okay, goodbye to Ian and you." Which was a shame. I had to answer this one immediately because there's a couple of things you need to remember. Sandra was in last night, so we know that there's no blocking going on here. And we also noticed that she's got numbers after her name, 8661 in this particular instance. These numbers have suddenly started to appear. I don't know whether YouTube has changed something, but on Ian's side, he has no technical knowledge on how to do anything. In fact, I've had to talk him through all sorts of stuff, and I'm going to rest assured you, Sandra, you're not in that list. You're not in the naughty list. You're not sitting on a naughty step. We think it's something YouTube has done. We've got a mutual friend, Tony York, and he's lost his administrative privileges to block anybody. So we don't have a moderator there anymore. So I've got a funny feeling your issues are not with Ian. They're not with me. And I think the issue is with YouTube. And I hope to find out a little bit more. We continued our conversation as best as possible. But I have no idea if you saw them or what. But it's nice that you were around yesterday. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I'm just going to take a quick break. I definitely need one with my throat. It's getting very, very sore. Just going to get something for that, and I'll be back in a moment. And I feel a lot more refreshed, and salute to Sandra, and I hope all those issues go away. And like I say, blocking is something that I shy away from all the time. Has to be really, really up there for me to block. I mean, somebody has to do something drastically wrong, and most of the time it's out of control and is controlled by YouTube, to be quite honest, or some people with a spanner that are doing things outside of what they should do as moderators, and that's down to the creator and the owner of the channel. And in this particular instance, even the people mentioned can't be at fault. They haven't got the spanner and the technical know-how and so forth. So moving away from that debacle, I just wish you all a Merry Christmas on that one, and hope for the best. We're moving now to my friend here, Steve's Gaming Part 2. I have to do my salute. You bastard, fucking hate you, little shit. Your channel's just too good. And I have to do that because it's the law. And it's Christmas. So let's see what he's put. He's put, "Hi, Del. Great blog as usual, but geez, mate, 3 hours. Yeah, haha. I guess this time next year there'll be 5 hours. Doubt it. I'm trying to keep this one down. I don't know whether I'll meet it. Anyway, I hope you and your mum are okay and the week wasn't too stressful or taxing for you both. My week has been a mixed bag, but what can you do? I have 2 questions for you today, and here we go. Question 1. What one item did you want for Christmas as a kid but never got? Sort of like a similar thing to what Ian said, so I'm going to have to go back to that. There's been many, obviously, things that were just too expensive, like bikes when I was younger. I did manage to get them, but not for Christmas, you know, like a rally chopper or grifter or whatever it is. I remember I got a rally bomber that I wanted for Christmas, but got it in March, April. And that was a very expensive item. So I think that answers that. And question 2, was there ever a good Christmas-based video game? I think not, but wonder if you can think of one. Do you know what? I can't think of one either. Let me have a think. So I didn't have a Christmas game on the Mega Drive. There weren't many on the SNES that spring to mind that are Christmas themed. I would say it would have to be an MMO, like Guild Wars 1 or Guild Wars 2, that aren't Christmas themed but have a Christmas themed holiday that happened at the time. So I was talking about this last night with Denny, where I said that in the early days of Guild Wars 1, Christmas came along, or any holiday, and there'd be an event. And on that event, you got stuff given to you as presents, candy cane, skins, all that sort of stuff for your character. And there were missions that were there. But on a particular day, like Christmas Day, every couple of hours, they did this sort of a game like Simon Says, which they called, I think, what was it called? Greenwich Day or something like that. It was Winter's Day, but it was a particular character, like a devil type character that controlled the whole of the land, and he would say, Simon Says do this, but if he didn't say his name before it, you were supposed to not do anything, and that meant you just stood up doing nothing. And if you did that, and you did it more than 5 times out of 10, you got a load of presents put into your own inventory. And you got things like Santa's hats and things like that. And I was so into this game that I remember that during 2005 to about 2010, I'd even leave the Christmas Day table, where we were having food, and do this, because it was every couple of hours, and it'd be on at like 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. We'd have our dinner about 2ish. And if it happened to be at a time where my pudding was just about to be served or something, I'd leave the table and say, I'll eat that later, gotta go. And I'd do this event and then go back and eat it. You know what I mean? That's terrible, isn't it, when you think about it? But I was so into that game that I did silly things like that. And I was an adult. It's no excuses. It's a terrible thing to do. But yeah, I don't think I can think of a Commodore 64 game, a Spectrum game, an Amiga game that was set around Christmas. Now, there's a lot of indie games that have come out since then. Like Santa having to deliver presents and he drops them and they have to go down the chimney, and it's like a scramble type game and all of those sort of things. And I'm sure they're brilliant, but I've never been the kid in me that would find them great now, if you see what I mean. So, no, I can't think of any. I think you'll have to accept my answer of Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 and their Winter's Day events as being the answer. All the best, mate, and give my love to your mum, and of course, I will. My best wishes are to you. These builders need to have a good ass kicking, as far as I'm concerned. I know it's not all of their fault, but they should be giving you more instruction in regards to you being functional at Christmas, like a cooker that works, while your kitchen's being done, or giving you compensation or something that you can do to go out and book for Christmas dinner. And if they're not doing that, then they've got no Christmas spirit in them whatsoever. I blame really not the people working, but the owners. And please keep us informed, and I hope your Christmas goes really, really well. And salute, my friend. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you, and keep your eyes peeled for something. That's all I can say. Right, and we move on to Gan's Teeth, and he's put, hi, Del Boy. I'd definitely recommend giving The Thick of It another try. That's a TV show that I mentioned last week that I really never gave much of a chance to, and I definitely think I will. I used to enjoy watching it with my late dad. Very funny, as long as you don't mind a lot of swearing. No, I don't mind all that, that's fine. Have you watched any of the Blake 7 Blu-ray episodes yet? Yes, all of season 1, couple of discs of season 2. I'm halfway through season 2, and I think the new special effects are excellent. I'm not always a fan of this sort of thing, but they are very tastefully done and do add some value to the stories. Yeah, we had a little chat about this last night, and I happened to mention that the first time I saw this really was Star Trek, where it came out on HD DVD. One side was HD, the other side DVD, and you had a choice of the new special effects being in or watching the old show that had been cleaned up. An absolutely fantastic way of doing it. Doctor Who followed suit. Blake 7 does exactly the same. That's the way to do it. Don't just give people the option of just the new special effects. It's not the right way to do things. So I am a fan, but I do understand, yes, certain ones just don't do it well. Definitely agree with you there. Salute, my friend. Merry Christmas to you from me and my mum and the rest of my family. And that's to everybody that I've been talking to through this blog. Moving on now to Jamie Muckman-Movies, as Ian calls him. And he's put, hi, Del Boy. He's such a good bloke, this bloke, I tell you. Wish I was more like him, I have to say. Big fan of Catch Me If You Can too. Can't say the other two are steelbooks worthy though. I wasn't a fan of Anaconda or Jarhead at all. Looking forward to Jarhead, less Anaconda. So I'll reserve my judgment on that, but go by what you say. Question, do you have a Christmas film you watch every year? I would say Gremlins is mine, but I can also see The Holdovers becoming another that will be an annual watch at this time of year. And I really do like The Holdovers, and I think it's growing on me every time I re-watch it. But I've always said Scrooged, and I've always said It's a Wonderful Life, along with Christmas Vacation. And they're 3 films that I watch religiously every year. Doesn't matter what happens. And, you know, I hope terrestrial TV show those at good times. If they don't, I know Sky's there and there's rewatch and catch up and all that sort of stuff. But I think terrestrial still has its place with Freely and Freeview. Those 2 systems are still working in tandem at the moment. And that means that you should have more ability to watch these films. You know, there's honourable mentions, Jingle All the Way, Gremlins, all of that sort of stuff. So, but I'm going to keep it to those 3. I'm so looking forward to your live stream tonight. I don't know quite how much I'm going to be able to watch it because I'm getting my mum to bed and getting to work in the morning. But I know that there's rewatch, and I'll be watching avidly where and when I can. And I know Ian and yourself and your other guest, I think it's Mr. Sands, something like that, are going to have a great time tonight. We had a great time, Ian, Denny and I, last night. So I can only imagine you're just going to have a ball. Ian's so funny. You'll love his answers, I'm sure, and his time on your channel. And we move on. Salute, my friend, and please, Muckman has got a channel, and his description is always in my his channel is always in my description, as is many of the others. Please go and have a look. Please go and subscribe if you like his content, and I can't see why you wouldn't. So moving on now to my friend Martroyd. And he's put, I've just realised the next blog will be the last one before Christmas. With that in mind, I want to thank you, Del, for all the video, blogs and entertainment you've shared with us this year. I know it hasn't been easy, but staying positive really is the best way to push through the tough times. Wishing you and your mum all the very best for the big day, mate. That's so nice of you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm looking forward to relaxing. I'm looking forward to being there for my mum. I'm looking forward also to thinking about my friends. I'll be thinking of them opening their presents, getting all the things that they want, spending time with family, but most of all, resting. I think we ought to do that and reflect on what Christmas means to us, because that could be religious, it could be just a holiday, all of them viable for attention. So there's no one big answer to that. You just have a great relaxing time. that's my answer to that one. Thank you very much, Martroyd. I'm so looking forward to speaking to you in the future and having a reet grand time as a wise man who looks very much like Santa says every week. I think we know who that is by now. Moving on, we get to the last one, Colin Jones, aka Ponder. Brilliant guy, you know. I think he's doing his blog tomorrow. Look out for that, please. It's going to be a great one. The last one before Christmas. Is he going to be the Grinch? Is he going to be fun and happy and lightheaded and giddy about the time he's going to have off, etc.? Only time will tell tomorrow. And what's he put? He said, prostate exam. Yes. I had that done on the day of typing this bit of my comment. Follow-up precautionary blood tests booked. I hope that goes well for you, mate. And yes, that's definitely something that us of our age need to get done. Good to hear your mum is walking a bit and if good and in good spirits, but hope that head problems is just transient. Send in my regards as always. Yes, she did it this morning as well. If you can imagine, getting her out of bed is difficult. When we get her out of bed, she has to get on the machine and go onto the commode where we dress and wash her. Then she has to get up on this machine and move to the walking machine, to the wheelchair, then the wheelchair into the living room, then use that machine again to lift herself up to get her into the chair. Halfway through that process, she's putting her hand to her head saying she feels a bit queer. We are concerned with that. The doctor gave us a bit of, with that saying, that might be just strain, but it could also be other things. But look out for this, which my sister took great attention of detail to, just like she does as a great carer. And it does seem to happen when she's tired. She's most tired when she's getting out of bed in the morning and going to bed at night. She doesn't do it much during the day. So I've got a funny feeling it's the exertion. It's almost like, you know, when you bend over to pick something up and you get up really quick. You have that weird sensation. And that's what I think she's trying to portray to us. So hope that's what it is. I really hope both of you and your sister can warm as family should towards each other. So do I. I'm pretty sure things, you know, will improve. If they don't, then it's going to affect care. And if it affects care, then I can only imagine what we need to do, which neither of us have agreed or wanted to do. Only us and I know what that is. Thank you for your answer last week. It was definitely not a non-answer and showed that even though the gifts you have received haven't been of high monetary value, they have and continue to be a high emotional value. Jupiter Ace, go forth, my friend. Yes, he's talking about the language on the Jupiter Ace. Very good. May the 4th be with you. Maybe that could be one if Jupiter Ace had a Star Wars game on it. But there you go. Always a joke and a quip with Colin. The Osborne one is, I believe, one of the first portable computers. It was still quite large and is now considered by the term luggable. Yes, it was my computer club family computer that they had, and I was always in awe of it in the distance, even though it's very basic really now. But back in the day when because I had an SX64 for a very, very short period of time. I mean, we're talking about a month. And that was my pride and joy. But it was just something I needed to sell to get something else. I think it was to help with getting my first car. Yes, it was. Yeah. Didn't have it long. Wish I hadn't got rid of it. I don't regret. I had great fun with my first car. So there we go. Pretty sure it was my car that I had to do that with. Yeah, it was. My question. Santa has a new reindeer and you are to name it. What name do you choose? Oh, you bastard. Oh, excuse my friend. Jesus. I'm not sure Bloody hell. Loads of names you can think of, isn't there? But they're all singular names, aren't they, the reindeer? You know, Donna, Blitz, and all of that. So you couldn't have things like Joyrider, Just in Time. Just in Time. What about Feckless? Is that from... Am I thinking of Father Ted there? Feckless. Come on, Feckless. Shit. What about Nudolph? Rudolph. Nudolph. You got, haven't you, tons. Clumsy, Dizzy, Wacky, Zippy. I'm going to go with Feckless. Yeah, it's that or Nudolph. Yeah, I can't think of any others. That I think sums that up. And that's all the comments out the way. So I'm going to have to move to my pad. That's what I was moving down, by the way. And we get to watched on YouTube. And as you know, there's 4 great channels that I watch religiously. This is the general sort of one that I watch of all sorts of stuff that come into my alerts that are not my friends and all of that sort of stuff. So they are This Week in Retro, Tech Moan, Gadget Show and Chronologically Gaming. And only one of those didn't do anything this week, and I don't know why. I haven't checked the Discord to find out, but it might be just because of Christmas and that sort of stuff. And that's Chronologically Gaming. So he's still in 1982. He's still in December. Don't know whether he'll actually finish that now, and it's taken him 6-7 months. So that's ever since he stopped doing 3 or 4 a week. He knocked it down to 1 when his machine blew up. So, and that's one of the reasons. So, you know, it must be very difficult for him. And I just wish him well for all the enjoyment he's given me for over the year. So this week in Retro had 3 subjects this week, like they always do, plus the housekeeping in general. They were called We're Still Keeping Up with the Commodore, Snow Day Diversions, and All I Want for Christmas. So it was very Christmas orientated, with the top one being the Commodore 64 Ultra being released, and the Commodore debacle, which anybody knows is all about trademark and so forth. Very interesting. Wish them all well for Christmas. It was great to have so many people on that at that time. There was 5 yesterday. Neil, the main owner and starter of that channel, came on for a Christmas chinwag. And he's got a new kiddie, so obviously Christmas is going to be very, very different for him this year, and I wish him very well. And they were all great guests, all great chums. Absolutely brilliant. Techmoan did the video called the Iridium Vox Boom. Here it is. And it was a boom box that he did similar one earlier, but this one's a cheaper one, and wanted to show the differences between them. And that was quite interesting because they all look like PA systems, and they all look like they're very powerful. And in the sound department, they are, feature-wise, because of their age, not so. Bluetooth speakers are taken over now, and most of the functionality through phone apps and so forth. But it's always great to see old tech, and I really enjoyed that. And the Gadget Show did Best Tech Gifts for 2025, Chaos and Quiz. That was quite interesting. It was 50-odd minutes and very enjoyable. In fact, all of the Christmas ones I saw were quite enjoyable this year. I've really enjoyed them. So moving down past my favourites, we've got a channel called Chance My IP. And this one is a very bad thing. The episode was called PlayStation Introduces Age Verification for UK Owners or Gamers. Yes, you can't even do this on the web when you log into your account, because I tried, you've got to go to your console and do an age verification process, and that means it affects the free games you get with PlayStation Plus. If something is aged above, a certain age range like PG, it will say you need to pass the age verification test, even though my account has got a credit card on it and I opened it up and I'm 50 odd years of age. I've got to go through this age verification process. It's bloody awful. So I looked at that and agreed with the consensus that it's not needed, it's not wanted, and it's atrocious. And they're because of our government, really, and starting this digital protection routine and process. All best intentions in the world, don't give a shit. It's blocked me, and I've got to turn on my PlayStation and go through that rigmarole, which I do when I've got time. When have I got time? Never. Terrible. Then there's a channel called Dan Wood. He was the first one that I saw do the Commodore 64 Ultimate is here. That's what we were talking about earlier in the This Week in Retro. And it's the new Commodore 64 Ultimate that is now starting to appear at people's houses. And it means that people will be able to open up a Commodore 64 at Christmas. Absolutely wonderful. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed looking at the machine from a distance. I'm not that enamoured with wanting one myself. That might change. But look at the RAM that's changing in pricing. I would think I've missed the boat on getting it at a good price. It's only going to go up. So, yeah. Then you've got the Flix Files. They did the 4K Blu-ray disc problems and my thoughts. Now, you might need to go to the live Ho 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 extravaganza. Sorry to keep mentioning that. But we mentioned about the 4K problem with playing discs and it freezing. Many different reasons or thoughts in regards to what could be causing it, from the plastic that the disc is held into having a gaseous type residue on it that could be transferred onto the disc, cleaning your discs with alcohol, cleaning your disc player with a DVD or Blu-ray cleaning program, to the throwaway nation of having a player with only plastic parts in it, and those plastic parts wear, and so therefore the lens gets misaligned, to HDMI cables and the type of cables you use, and the port getting loose at the back, and all sorts of other things. The debacle goes on. It's been going on for months. I've not experienced it, but although I'm a big film watcher and I do use my player at least once every 3 days, I would say. It's not like I watch 3 films a day, every day, and I've done so for the last 3 years. So I'm not the right person to probably have an input on it. But I do have an input in the fact that if you do miss something like updating the firmware, say, then you're not selling the point to people on what they need to do to check. So there is that. The next one I watched was Time Travel TV. And that was old UK adverts for computers and games plus electronics. And this is not something that's just come out this month, this week. It's quite old, but it's listing 6 hour-long episodes of just adverts for computer games. And a lot of them I remember and a lot of them I missed. So that was definitely a highlight, because I like Christmas adverts, like the Woolworth advert and all of that sort of stuff. It brings back my childhood, so that was brilliant. Then you've got Just Iconic Rewinds, and the episode was called The Studio Made It Fail. The debacle on the first men in the moon from 1964. And anybody that's ever seen my film shorts and stuff know that I've done Men in the Moon. It's a favourite of mine, but it didn't do well when it came out. And it's because it came out in the mid-60s and science fiction and technology was moving on. And therefore, even though the moon landing hadn't happened, there were much more grittier, closer to Earth type shows than the possibility of aliens living on the moon, and based on a H.G. Wells book at the turn of the century. So I still think it's a fantastic film, and I think it's considered a classic now. So that's all that matters. But it's nice to watch a little retrospective like that. And then I saw MN Stash, who did a review of his comics, and this episode was called How John Romita Sr. Perfected Spider-Man. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a big John Romita Sr. fan, and he followed on from the great Stan Lee and Steve. Bloody hell, I know Spider-Man so well. Steve. Bloody hell. Anyway, I'm going to have to look that up now because it's pissing me off. Spider-Man artists. I can name them all after him. John Romita, Ross Andrew. Bloody hell. I mean, Mark Bagley, Keith Pollard, Steve Ditko. That's why, because it was a Steve, you see. Bloody hell, why I couldn't remember that. Steve Ditko. Yeah, so when Steve Ditko finished in issue 38, John Romita Sr. followed on in 1939, did a 2-part Goblin story, How Green Was My Goblin, I think it was called, and revealed at last, I think. I've got a picture of it over on the wall up there, but you can't see it. And John Romita sort of like tried to mimic Steve Ditko because he thought he was coming back, but that never happened. So he continued and did a 50-60 issue run, really on and off, and became my artist of choice. Made him not more handsome, but you know, you're in that weird age of being a teenager and you sort of like shoot up and grow and your muscles grow and your bone structure grows. And he made him that. Plus, he then had more adult-orientated problems in regards to money and getting a job and still going to high school and all of this sort of stuff, you know. So, and with all the new villains that came along, it was just a fantastic time for me. It was you could look at it probably as an experimental for America, but from my point of view, I was reading these 9 years on from when they actually came out. And from that point of view, they were established. So, you know, that was absolutely brilliant. Why? Steve Ditko, I'm kicking myself, you know. And that's what I watched that was general. And then we get to films, TV and soundtrack, YouTube. And a lot of these are people that I know, watch, and I'm subscribed to. And absolutely fantastic. So the first one is Ian Hill, The Ramblings, who, like I say, is a great friend of mine. And I do a Wednesday live stream. And we'll be doing one even though it's Christmas Eve this Wednesday. That will be happening. And we hope that you'll join us. It won't be themed, I don't think, but that's down to Ian. I'm not quite sure, but themes is something that's happening this sort of like weekend with him and I. So, you know, but he's done the top 5 historical films 1961 to 67. He's probably got a 68 by now. Doctor Who review, Keys of Marinus, which is another William Hartnell one, absolutely fantastic. I've watched the Keys of Marinus just recently. It's not held up well, but it's still good. I like that one. X-Files review, season 5, episode 10. Wow, he's blazing through those. And Alive with Me, which was our episode 86. 86 with me. Poor sod. He's had to put up with me for 86 episodes. Don't think I've missed one. Might have done. Can't remember. But 86 episodes anyway. Absolutely fantastic. Why you're still waiting here if you're not subscribed, I don't know. Go and have a little look at the description. Go over there, have a look. He's got all of that stuff I've just mentioned and more. Music as well. And his collection, you know, as a general. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Don't know where I'd be without a Wednesday with him. I really honestly say that. Then we've got Mondo Celovic Movies, who did a couple of episodes this week. He did Black Friday Sale and Imprint Haul. The Imprint one I like the most. He's bought 3 TV box sets over from Imprint in Australia. That's expensive in itself. And the 3 were Department S, Captain Scarlet and Kolchak the Night Stalker. With Kolchak the Night Stalker being the one where I go, do you know what, I'd have bought that. Captain Scarlet I've got on Blu-ray over here, and it came with a book if you were a founder member of ordering that from the Jerry Anderson store. So that's really a rehash. Department S is a great show, as is Man in a Suitcase. Department S and Jason King and all of those, they are all fond in my memories, but nowhere near as excited I'd be without Kolchak the Night Stalker. That was absolutely fantastic show. I've got the DVDs of those, so dead jealous that he's got the Blu-rays. Then we got Through the Lens, my friend Josh. He did some shorts, Oscar predictions, top 10 films of 2025, and Avatar Fire and Ash review. Absolutely fantastic. You know, I've talked about Through the Lens before. Definitely worth a little look. I think you'll get great enjoyment. He does his reviews differently. He's had a few issues with TikTok this last couple of weeks. I hope those go away. Hope he has a great Christmas, as I do for Ian Hill and Mondo Celovic Movies. Christmas. You've all done great stuff, fellas. Thanks very much for all your entertainment this year. Same goes now for Did You See That? He did a couple of videos that I saw this week. They were only the review ones. He does more, but I only watched the review ones. And they were Christmas at the Catnip Cafe, which I found very intriguing as a title, and Silent Night, Deadly Night, a 2025 horror sort of like film. Both of those were definitely interesting review watches, and I would definitely recommend you go over there and look at that. And the next one we've just mentioned, which is Jamie Muckman-Movies, and he did his Sunday. He's doing tonight, because he hasn't done something this week, he's doing it tonight, the Sunday 5 Christmas films, and he's doing that with Ian Hill and Only Sans. That's what it's called, Only Sans. Like I said, it was Dr. DJ. I had no idea. It's Only Sans. Hoping that I get to watch that. If not, it'll be on catch up, but that'll only because of my mum and looking after her. It'll be the only reason. And the last one is Commode and Mayo's Take. So there was no Commode podcast this week, but the Commode and Mayo's Take carries on. They did reviews of Autumn 3, Marty Supreme, the Box Office Top 10, and The Housemaid. So 3 film reviews and a Box Office Top 10. That was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. On to the last page, guys and gals. And we're just over 2 hours, so I am doing fairly well. Game and Tech YouTube. These are mostly my friends. They're on my Discord, or they're on my friend's Discord, and we watch them. And the first one out the bag is Down the Rabbit Hole, as always. He did a couple of videos. They were made my own 1/6 scale arcade cabinet. So he has these little cabinets that he's bought from One Arcade and a few other sort of like places. He made his own. He got this little container from a thrift shop. Got this other container, slit them both in together. It had a window because it used to be an ashtray, I believe. He put a iPhone in there, downloaded some games, stuck on some decorative stuff as to make it look like their controllers, and then he had an arcade 1/6 cabinet, and it was based around Space Invaders. So that really looked cool. Really enjoyed that. And who knew that he was good with his hands like that? Ask his wife. That's a bad joke, isn't it? But anyway, he also did a video called Dungeons and Dragons, Do You Ever Die? Which is great because it's about the role-playing Dungeons and Dragons game. And I have to say, the Dungeon Master controls everything. But it bodes the question, so many of you come back. Why isn't it that more of you don't die? It's answered in that video. Go and watch. Absolutely fantastic. And definitely go over there and have a look. Very entertaining. He does more than just, like I say, arcade games, VR games. He does everything I just mentioned there, which is building little cabinets, observations, stuff about Dungeons and Dragons. He does stuff on Battle of the Planets, all sorts of stuff. Battlestar Galactica he's done this year. Done a number of things. Absolutely marvellous. And then we get to Robert's Retro Gaming, or as I call him, Canadian Royalty, and I am not worthy. Always do that. And he's done all of the videos that you could ever want in your life. He did Dwarf Fortress Classic Episode 18, Minecraft Play Episode 173, Commodore 64 Play of Alien Syndrome, SNES gameplay of a game called Oscar, and Atari 8-bit, which is Spy vs. Spy 2, Matchup, Mule, and Jockey Wilson's Darts. Absolutely marvellous. Loved them all. Thought they were absolutely brilliant. The darts one was funny, I actually found. But all of them I found interesting. Salute, my friend. Have an absolute fantastic Christmas. Sorry you couldn't leave a message to me before Christmas, but I know you're in a busy period of your life right now, so it's totally understandable. It's not a problem. Then you got Steve's Gaming Part 2, who did this Advent calendar, episodes 13 to 20, and if I was to probably leave now and look, there's probably a episode 21, but at this time where I'm recording this, it is still at just up to episode 20, but it is the 21st day, so we should have one. Then we got Colin Jones, aka Ponder. Merry Christmas, Steve. And Colin Jones did 10p. Can't read my writing. Nope, can't read my writing on that. He did a BBC Micro First Capture, that's for definite. He did a 10p challenge, I think, on something called Prehistoric Isle, which is a Neo Geo game. Sorry, I couldn't read quite what my writing is. It's 10p something challenge. Can't read what it says. So apologies on that. He's going to draw me on that. You know that, don't you? Fantastic. Then you've got David Retro Games Play Badly, who did a Christmas 2025 podcast and gifts. And what a lot of gifts he got. It's really nice to see a man with a smile on his face, a pint in one hand. What more could you ask? And then Maymeister did Arcade Arcade Features Part 2 live stream. So he asks people, what would you like him to play from the arcades? It's part 2 of that, and he's doing more of the newer ones. So that was quite good. And then he did an 8-bit kerfuffle on Gilligan's Gold. Now, Gilligan's Gold is one I definitely had on the Commodore 64, and I loved it to bits. There is a newer version, but he didn't show that off for the Commodore 64. But he did it for this Gilligan's Gold for the Spectrum and the Amstrad. Commodore came up on top. But that's how that one went. And that's the end of the blog, apart from what I bought. And there have been a few things that have come through. So let's go to overhead cam and hope that works. Yes, it does. So we've got Thunderbird's Terror in New York City Steelbook, and on the other side, Trapped in the Sky. And you will see that it's a 4K restoration. So that's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, a show from the 60s getting a 4K upgrade. And it's the same with Space 1999 Breakaway. It's a 4K steelbook. Looks absolutely wonderful. And I would say that's going to be the highlight of one of the things I'm going to watch this week. Brilliant. Then we've got The Long Walk, which a lot of people have been talking about this year. I'm looking forward to watching that. That's going to be great when I get to that. And the biggest one that arrived yesterday is the Italian version of Once Upon a Time in America, which is a 3 to 4 hour Martin Scorsese film that doesn't get talked much about at the moment. It was from Italy. It wasn't that terribly expensive. And you can see on there it's number 393 of 3,000. So I got that quite early. And that's your lot. That's your lot. So we'll go back to camera view, which is just there. And I'm going to just round up and say thank you so much for all your support this year. Next week, it will be just before New Year's Eve, where I'll probably be doing some reflection. I hope things get a lot better. I hope you've enjoyed this blog. I hope it hasn't been too quiet, too noisy, whatever, and no finger pointing. I was like my sister and my mum would say, I'll break your bloody fingers off. And with that, I'm going to say salute. Hope you enjoyed this. Roll on next week. Have a fantastic Christmas, won't you all? Maybe I should put my hat on. There we go. And I'll say ho, ho, ho. Have a great Christmas. Bye-bye.